Okay. Are we seeing me? Are we hearing me? I see him, Miss Barney. Mrs. Barney, excuse me. I don't know how much of a delay we have. The YouTube is not showing me what you're actually seeing. All right. Hey, Bob. Hey, Mrs. Barney. Hi, Leslie. She's right here. She's hiding. No. Herb Dennenberg wall right here. If you know the Herb Dennenberg wall, you didn't knock. All right. Let's see. Being that we got this started, let's see. Okay. So I call this the live after show. And before we begin, I want to talk about some business stuff with ODDySEEy that includes all of you in one facet or another. When that's out of the way, we're going to move on to what I actually want the after show to be about, or what you guys might want the after show to be about, which I'll explain it when we reach that point. So first, collage. Anyone who's made any purchase of any of the ODDySEEy swag, whether it be mugs, shirts, hats, stickers, magnets, let me know by sending me a picture of you wearing it or holding it up or wherever you decided to put it. And then I'll take your picture of you wearing the swag along with other people wearing the swag and make a whole collage. And I will use that as the intro to these after shows. How's that sound? Everybody get to see their faces bouncing all around, smiling, doing whatever it is that you want to do, as long as it's not that. Don't do that. You know how the rules are. Okay, moving on. Merchandise. I was thinking if you guys could tell me what you would actually like in merchandise. There's so many things out there. There's shirts, there's hats, there's jackets, there's hoodies, there's stickers, there's cups, there's mugs, there's plates. What would you like to have ODDySEEy on there on to make you a part of it? Just let me know in comments, send me a message, put it up in the chat here. The chat for me is right here. So if you see me doing this, I'm looking at the chat. That way I could say, "G'day, Adam." Hey, Josh. Hi, Addie. Addie's the granddaughter. Got to say hi to Addie. If you see me looking up this way, I'm making sure that the stream is still streaming, things are still connected and doing what they're supposed to do. If you see me look back this way, then I'm getting lost in that pretty little color swag that's going on over there. Anyway, back to this. All right. Car decals, not bumper stickers. That's interesting. What do you mean by decals? You mean actual body decals or like the things that you stick on windows? Because that's actually not difficult to do. I don't think I have bumper stickers up because I used to hate having to pull bumper stickers off. It used to be interesting. Again, I don't know what the time lag is. Les, how long has the lag been?
Between when you're speaking and when I'm hearing it, probably about 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Maybe 8. 8 seconds.
Maybe 7.95.
Maybe, could be.
A little bit of lag. So realize that there is a lag between what I see on the screen here to respond to and so forth. Got it, Mrs. Barney. Windows decals. That was Apollo. I apologize if that came over really, really loud, but somebody's trying to break into the house and he's going to dispatch them for me. That's his job for this evening. Okay. Now, let's get on to this little fellow here. Patreon. I want to thank every one of you who has made and still makes donations to the ODDySEEy through Patreon and eBay. It's very, very difficult to keep up with the basic costs surrounding the channel, and every penny that you guys give me really, really helps. The majority of it pays for maintaining the legal aspects of the channel so that there's no lawsuits coming in. No, it doesn't pay for a lawyer. It just keeps the operation operational. Some of it pays for gasoline, and most of it pays for coffee. So if you have some loose change, jump out the Patreon, throw the Witcher a coin. Hey, 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 hey. Hats with ponytails attached on the back. Really, Roger? Really? Really? And you can't snicker while I'm doing this. Do you want the mic and the you guys want her on mic and camera? You just let me know, and maybe I'll make it happen. So yeah, like I said, if you have a coin, throw it to your Witcher. It really helps with everything on the channel. And if you jump out the Patreon, you happen to go into Patreon, which goes through a subscription fee, if you will. The vast majority of the patrons on Patreon donate $1 a month, which is 25 cents per video. And as weird as that sounds, it actually makes a difference. After my break, there was a big bleed out, and I lost a lot of patrons from Patreon, and rightfully so. But I want to give them a shout out, and I want to give a shout out to my longest patron who has contributed the largest amount financially and to every video, aside from myself, to the Odyssey with $1 to every show since the start. Now, I haven't seen your name pop up yet, and hopefully you'll be here later, but if not, thank you, TK. TK's been there from the very, very start. I've had a handful of people there from the very, very start, but he has consistently given $1 to every show, which that's just unbelievable. And that's just fantastic. So if you guys get a chance, jump out there. Now, that doesn't mean that any of my former patrons, people who were patrons and then they quit, that they're any less valuable. Every penny donated adds up over time and helps put a dent in the production cost. All these fancy lights and these fancy microphones, which really aren't fancy. They're like, don't tell anybody. They're like Walmart knockoffs. They weren't even Walmart quality. They were a little bit less than that. Anyway, let's get off of that subject. Music. I want to talk to you all about music. I'm looking for any music artist to provide music for the Odyssey. So if you're musical, have musical talent, play an instrument, play in a band, have a song, and you would like exposure, contact me so we can discuss playing your song in the Odyssey's videos and giving you credit to the song. I'm open to essentially any style, any type of music, and I want you guys to be a part of this. And technically, we'll have to go and work out all the details and the legal aspects and licensing through email or video calls. But make sure if you have that and you want that experience and you want that exposure, even if you don't want the exposure, because if you're similar to me, that exposure is kind of weird. And I'd rather just give it away or just say, yeah, no, do this and we'll do everything else in the backside. Hit me up. If you go to the About section on the YouTube channel, you do a little captcha thing. There, you're not a computer and you got my email address. Or you could jump out to Facebook and you can message me through Facebook and we can do the same thing. All right, let's see. Cash App. No, Adam, I don't have Cash App. I could set it up. I have to see what international issues may or may not be going on with the people who actually hold Cash App, but I will keep that in mind. I've tried to open up as many doors as possible to the least number of required subscriptions in order for someone to send a donation of any kind toward the channel. All right, next category of business. I call this one copycat. Now, this is an idea that I've had since the start of the show. I want those of you who are capable and able in a safe mental and physical capacity to make copycats of my videos. Now, I don't mean actually copycat an existing video, unless you feel that you could actually do it better than I can, like that little darling princess I raised, Evil Aaron's Odyssey. Yeah, and I'll have fun with those if you do those. What I'm talking about is I want you to make an Odyssey-esque video of a site, a location, a story in your neck of the woods that I will show on this channel. Kind of like building a team. I'll be making a list of rules that must be followed in order for this to happen correctly and posting it on the Discord, or you can request it by email. Now, rules that I mentioned that must be followed will be things like all information must be factual and must be able to be cited if requested. All opinions must be backed up by facts and proper premise and not just a personal feeling or a viewpoint. And the structure of the video has to have an opening, a middle, footage, a closing, and must also be followed in order for this to work. But the rest will totally be up to you and how you choose to present it. Mrs. Barney, I'll get back to you that one. Actually, I'll address that now. Mrs. Barney requested if she can just send a check directly to me. Yes and no. The yes is you're capable of it. The no is, in this modern day and time, giving out too much information has become something that's very, very, very dangerous. So I try to create a shield between the viewership, the ODDySEEy, and myself. And fortunately or unfortunately, I am the ODDySEEy. So there's a collision that's right there, and they're not physically separated by location or person, just tone of voice. The real me says things that are really not nice very, very often. But ODDySEEy does it because he's a good guy. What? No. No. Okay. My research source. I'll happily cough up my research sources. I don't know if you can see behind me, but it's a huge private library. And most of these books are available in public libraries. Library of Congress has tons of them. And if you're good with reading through these things to find out and cite your sources and be able to tell people who someone really is, be more than happy to share. Honestly. Matter of fact, I just got a piece. Very interesting piece. This is, can't remember the year. Be very careful with it. It's very old. This is from the 1890s. And it's the recollections of a centenarian. So this is actually a short story of a particular person who passed away, but before they passed away, their story was recounted. I'll be doing something with that in the future, I guarantee it. But it talks about times of yore in this part of Huntingdon County, and when Huntingdon County was a very different physical shape. Am I a good guy?
You are. You're a good guy.
My best cheerleader. I nodded not at Leslie, I nodded at Apollo. All right. The next subject after the concept of doing the copycat is team. I'm considering building a team or a group of potential collaborators, data diggers, site visitors, videographers, confidential informants, secret squirrels for the ODDySEEy. I seriously believe that this channel has a potential to grow in ways that has not been seen in other ODDySEEy channels or network television shows, and I'm seeking people who are interested in participating. So if you have an inkling to join up, reach out to me. I won't bite. And if you don't believe me, there are people in this chat right now that you can ask, and you'll be surprised at how many of these viewers I actually speak with on a regular basis and visit them or get visited by them. And I'm just a normal guy with a really big head and lots of stuff clanking around in it. And I love to think and speak about things at length until my social energy meter runs dry, and then I bug out and I hide in a dark corner of my cellar to charge back up. Figured that hit you right, Adam. Okay, something new I've been doing with videos is premieres. I've done premieres before, but I've been doing premieres for every video recently. And the reason why I'm doing it, well, before I tell you the reason why, do you like it? Do you like that there's premieres instead of just waiting for the video to pop up? And The reason why I ask is when you do a premiere, YouTube puts the video out and it has a commercial at the beginning and a commercial at the end, but there's no commercial interruptions in the middle. And while you're watching the premiere, you can chat with me on a sidebar, much like we're doing right now. And that is good for you to interact with me, but at the same time, there's no commercials. Now, so that you're aware, commercials are almost as important to this channel as donations. The commercials are not created by me. They're not chosen by me. They're chosen by the AI algorithm from Google that thinks you'll find it interesting. Watching a commercial all the way through garners this channel 1 to 3 cents per entire view. So when I have 1,000 views on a video, if everyone watched all 3 commercials all the way through, the channel makes $10 to $30 before there's a $5 transfer fee and a 63% tax put on it. So the reality is the channel averages about $2 every 1,000 views on one video. So when I do these premieres, I'm doing them for free. There's no commercials. So it doesn't financially benefit the channel in any way or help with production costs. And if you like that, that's great. And we'll keep it on same time now, Saturday, 8 p.m. We can continue going through that because that works out to my better half's benefit. Let me see. Scott and Chatters. Brian, it's okay to be late. There's Chip. There's Bob. Big head. Yes, it is. This hat is extra, extra large. It's not an extra large. I can't fit into any military caps. It's a huge cranium. Tried to sleep on my big Pella. Put it in chat if you know what movie that's from. Okay, moving on. After show. Now, this isn't the after show that we're doing right now. Yet. It is, but it's not. So here's the idea that I have for this after show. I like the idea of talking about the shows when they're done because there's a lot more information than what's condensed down into a 15 or 20 minute video. And it'll allow me to share that information with you and answer any questions that you have. And it'll also help me figure out what you want to see in other potential shows and what direction ODDySEEy will go. One of the ideas that I'm also turning around is that I should do the after shows as podcasts. It's a new offering YouTube's giving. Everyone knows what a podcast is, but it's podcast with video. But you set them up so that it's more audio based, so people don't have to see your mug talking or see the pictures. Along with the podcast, maybe doing some interviews with other people who do similar to what I do or have similar interest as it. And the biggest thing about doing the whole podcast direction, not the after show direction, but the podcast direction is I'm curious if you'd be interested in me doing things that fall outside the normal ODDySEEy, such as things that don't follow fact or truth, but fall way deeper into the woo-woo of paranormal, UFO, UAP, MIB, MI6, Secret Service, DARPA, cryptozoology, ancient civilizations, weird coincidences, things like that. Stuff that don't follow the norm and live very heavy in speculation, hearsay, and folk tales. And my reasoning is because those things that make us who we once were are still what make us who we are today. And it's neat to watch people get excited about these. Now, most of the stuff I can explain out scientifically or with actual facts. And it's just people don't know what they're looking at because they've never seen it before. But as I've stated to an associate the other day, I want to follow the Fox Mulder I want to believe mentality while balancing it out with the Scully show me the proof. I was also thinking, and I know I've said it before, the idea of reading certain stories that are in the public domain because my mother likes to hear my, as she calls it, radio voice. So let me know what you guys think about that. Let me do a catch up. An ODDySEEy bobblehead.
I think it would be great. I want one.
Let me see if I can get the
That way you'll all be
Let me see
telling me
if I can
yes.
get the finger. Do you guys see that? Right there on the shelf. Right there. It's not an Odyssey bobblehead. But it's pretty close. This is a Doctor Who. This is the fourth Doctor. This is my Doctor. This is the real Doctor Who. Um, but yeah, my daughter picked it up because she got into Doctor Who. But at the same time, I realized that, well, maybe we could do that. That's something that I'll make sure gets added to the list. Okay, now on to the actual after show. So, is there anything? Actually, not is there anything. What do you guys want to talk about in the past couple of shows? We did the most recent one we did was, and I'm drawing a blank on the video that I did last week because I erased the chalkboard. Spontaneous human combustion, right? Spontaneous human combustion. Oh no, I did the pictures that came in. Anything you want to hear about those pictures, or about spontaneous human combustion, or about the shoe house? I'll watch the chat here for a couple seconds. While I'm watching it, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. No alcohol. How about anything on anything? Did the ray grape disappear? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, okay. I had to remind myself. All right, JJ, I looked into that one. When I started asking questions, let's just say it's still too new. It was getting stay away feedback that was coming from people, the people that I were asking over in Center County and Franklin County and Blair County. So I kind of backed off on it. It's sitting on a back burner, but it's still a little too fresh to touch, if you understand what I'm saying there. Peggy Sue Bradnick. I have hours and hours of story regarding Peggy Sue. I met up with Peggy Sue probably 2 years ago. Peggy Sue is still around, still with us. She's in a care, but I've been waiting. Roger Garman, yes, Peggy Sue Bradnick in connection with Bicycle Pete. It's the same story. And I've been kind of staying away from it because, number one, there's a movie in production, another movie in production. And number two, Peggy's still around and she's not in a good position health wise. And I've just been a little bit patient, but that story is on there. That's a really big story. And I'm not very far from the caves, or the, I don't even know if you would call them caves. They're more like a whole bunch of crevasses and rock shelters. But I want to go up there and actually do some really nice footage about that. Yeah, Peggy Sue is a very great story. It's still to this day the largest manhunt ever to take place in the United States of America. That's what we used to do when a kid would disappear. Everybody get together. What, you guys have no questions about people just bursting on fire who were most likely diabetics? What other kind of stories have you guys been liking, and why? The physical visits, the difficult mountain climbs, the remote house that's been abandoned for 100 years and can't find a backstory on it that's proper. There's one of those that's a common location up in the Susquehannas in the wilds. Um, what is that one called? I have to open up my list. Um, it's an actual cabin. Oh, I can't find it. Do you remember what it was called? The hunting cabin that was built between the two big stone rocks.
Oh,
Nobody can find the history on it anywhere.
yes, that was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
We walked, what, a mile back
Oh,
in to
that
find
it's
it?
all beautiful up there. When I just told everyone that I needed to bring up my list. Here, I'll let you see the background secret. So I use OneNote, and I have all these things on the left here. Every one of these is a site location. So when I tell you I have it on the list, I have it on the list. And for example, the McGuire Massacre is the one that's open right now. With the McGuire Massacre, I have all this research information on it here, and all these pages on the right hand side are more parts to the story, citation web links, photos coming directly out of books, and it just goes on and on and on. Okay, you can't look at that anymore. Don't steal it. Unless you could do a really good job on it, and then by all means take it. The other thing that I use often is, sorry, we're seeing that on the screen. As you can see, this other desktop app. Nope. All right, we're loading into Google Earth here. This is the desktop version of it. And if I do this, go down to Pennsylvania, here are all the videos that are currently done. Get that right in the middle of the screen. Here's the ones that have currently been done with physical visits. These are only the physical visits, okay? Let me turn that off. Here's the other sites that I have labeled, which is about half of the sites that you just saw in the OneNote. So there's no lack of sites. Here, look, an error occurred. This is what was taking us so long to get live. An error occurred. There's no lack of sites. I have tonnages of sites. There's just a lack of fuel for the most part to get to those sites. So I've been trying to do the ones that even if I physically went to the actual site, there's nothing there to record anymore. I mean, there's a dependency on historical information. Okay, Coons Camp. Yes, Bob. Thank you. Coons Camp. I know as soon as I said the two rocks,
Yep.
the hunting cabin between the two rocks, Coons Camp. There's nothing on Coons. And I want to go back out there just to go back out to Coons Camp because it was spectacular. But there's no recorded history on it, especially because what the area was being used for with the nuclear jet bunkers, the nuclear silo, the beryllium manufacturing company. They literally don't want you digging around because you'll kick up potentially beryllium, which is really not good for you. Not good for you at all. Hidden history of local lore, Adam says. I like the hidden history too. That's why I was excited to be able to show you guys when I got this little document here. I was really excited, especially the story of how it came into the hands that gave it to me. That'll be fun to actually do. But yeah, learning about the hidden stuff, you actually are able to put other stories together and go, oh, wait a minute. And that goes all the way back to when I talked about Shavers Creek. And when you actually learn the history, you go, oh, Shavers Creek, and his head was cut off, and then he had a widow, and then his widow was picked up by a guy who was a famous landowner. Then you start putting things together like, well, the landowner is the guy who sold it to Shaver in the first place. He didn't like Shaver. Shaver lost his head. They said it was Indians. Indians don't cut heads off. Then other people's heads started getting chopped off. Then he swoops in, he gets all of his land back, gets all the dowry that goes with the land, and gets the wife. Wait a minute, maybe something's going on here. and I love when you can just dig in a little bit, and that's the stuff that pops out of it. Norman Johnson in the late 90s. There was another guy who escaped from SEI Huntington. That's curious. Okay, so here's one of the things that we run into with this is no, you know what? I could probably do that. I'm going to put Norman Johnson down, and we'll see if we can get that kicked up. Roger, Ghost and Spirits. Okay, so I want to keep the main channel to the main channel, and we're going to stick with the facts, the truth, and what we can actually uncover. And the podcast portion, I want to actually delve into maybe the ghost and spirits part. Not too much. We're not going, oh my gosh, look, it's a ghost orb, when everybody can obviously see it's an out of focus dog hair that's blowing around the room. And people go, oh, did you see it fly across? No, your camera only saw it at 30 frames per second and it was beating its wings at 75. Therefore, it looks like it's a whirligig. I'll keep more to the stories that come out of Pennsylvania, especially because Pennsylvania has the number one list of ghost stories and haunts in the United States of America. And I wanted to touch on them, but I don't want it to go too far off the deep end. It's okay if we sip the Kool-Aid. We don't want to drink it. That's going to be the key. Adam, I've got Spanish Hill since the first time you mentioned it. Adam sends me stuff all the time. I just haven't gotten to the opportunity of getting out there. I have base notes on it, but nothing major yet. And Screwball likes the local history and the supernatural. There is so much of it. I could tell you about the ghosts in our house, our building. Hold on one second. I know there's not a ghost in the house. Okay. So so when we moved in here, we met some people that had lived here formerly, and they spoke of a ghost that drips like water from the ceiling and forms into this old lady, and then it splashes through the bottom. And then we found out that we actually have a live well within the building underneath the steps that goes into the cellar. Have you gotten to the whole Amityville part yet, people? And and then there's the shadow person that kind of wanders around in this building. At one point, this building started off as a hotel to the canal. Then it was a hotel to the trains when Conrail came through, or was it PRR or was it Broad Top? I don't know. Whatever came through Alexandria, Pennsylvania. Then it went into hotel bar. Then it went to just a bar, and then it became a home for the elderly. Then it became an elderly care home. And I don't know for a fact, but there are horror stories that we have heard from people related to people who were here. And as I'm finding out, there's always horror stories of elderly care facilities. And we don't know how many people passed here, but what was one of the stories? When they were misbehaving, they'd get locked up in the cellar and tied to a chair, and the lights turned off. They'd be in the cellar of this building, and trust me, it's a spooky cellar. And they'd have a bad situation, but they're just stories. Yes, just stories. I've seen the ghost guy. My daughter will tell you all about the shadow man. We think there might be a shadow man, but the dogs say that there's not. And that's one of the reasons why the dogs are in here. They're like,
you have a floater.
I have a floater?
Yeah, I just think it's a floater in the
Oh, that's it. In my eye, I must have a floater. And my retina, because I'm a diabetic, my retina is starting to tear maybe, and I'm getting shutter eye. Adam, I'll talk to you directly on Facebook. Because you and I, we do a lot of chat through Messenger. So what other kind of things would you guys like to hear about? What would you like to talk about? I want to make this as informal as possible. Don't want to have a specific structure, but the next time we do an after show, the after show will be with more of a focus on the show that came previously. And it's not going to be, we have a show one week and then we have an after show the other week. I want to try and intersperse it as time goes on. Several encounters with ghosts and spirits, including the White Lady of Bucky. You actually got to the Told by story. Okay. You actually got to meet up with the White Lady of Buckhorn and see her. Which one was that? When we talked about that, was that when you were coming down off of Devil's Elbow, or I don't remember. My memory's going. Lots of things are going. Actually, it's not. It's not going. It's my RAM is getting full, and my cache is really small, so I don't know how to clear it properly. Raven Rock, yeah. Tried to do now. When you're saying Raven Rock, are you speaking Raven Rock military, or are you speaking Raven Rock, the rock that looks like a raven or had ravens? Because the military ones I can't get anywhere near anymore. Ever since the COVID outbreak, uh, military sites have been hard to get near. Um, Government sites that are up to what is it, Yellow Security or Yankee White, you can't get anywhere near them anymore. Um, a lot of properties with no trespass actually are just loaded with cameras and cops driving around all the time called Dick Cheney. That's funny. And so that's been another issue is site accessibility. There's a couple other YouTubers I watch that are really, really big. And one of them just started revisiting former sites. And when he started going to the former sites, he's now running into the trespass issue as well. Um, 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island, you can't even get within 50, what was it, 50 or you can get to the access roads that are on the mainland across from the island. And if you even wanted to go fishing, you will get chased off of the banks. Same with the railroad. I went to do the Spruce Creek tunnels for you, where there's two tunnels, one's used, one's not. And they expanded the boundary line from the rails and the rail shoulders to all the way down in the middle of the water of the Juniata River and all the way up to the sheer face walls. And when I got out there to actually do a visit, I was like, all right, well, I'll just walk along the bank and I should be fine because I'm not trespassing on rails. And I got stopped immediately at the gate. There was an exchange of words back and forth, but there's just no way to get there. And they're enforcing it now, and that's making things a whole lot harder. But they can't stop the drones yet. So there are situations where drone insertion will fix a lot of these problems. The White Lady is not in Buckhorn, but more northeast. That's not the stories that I was getting. What do you mean by more northeast? That's from Jim S. Thanks everybody for being here. This is pretty cool. Here's a question. Out of all the shows that you've watched, and this is for everyone, what is, in your opinion, your favorite show for any reason? And then give me a reason. I'd like to know why you liked it, because that would be really cool. And which ones did you not like? That happens too. There are shows that people don't like. It's nice to see that the video is still playing, but I can't watch any of the video playing. I've got a big old error, playback error. My supercomputer. All right, have we hit the back-to-back on that? My question versus responses? All right, guys. Well, you don't like Adam. You're too kind. When you say real personality, you mean the Facebook one in the chat messages, or the ones here in the videos? And Vicky Burke. Let me tell you, that Burke family, they are a spectacular spectacular family. They have helped me out in so many different ways, and they're just fun to be around, and they respond kindly to my jokes. And I really like when people respond kindly to my jokes. There's a lot of laughter. Paper mill, Terry, the paper mill was so much fun. Um, for all the longer that video was and all the more footage, uh, Leslie and I spent probably what 3 4 hours.
Great.
It was just so beautiful. I At one point I sat over one of the holes that had collapsed into concrete just because of the way the sunlight was coming underneath and lighting it up, and it was just so pretty to just sit there and watch the little fish going around, a couple snakes going around, and just think about at one time it was smoke and it was dirty and it was work and it probably had an awful smell, and now it's just reabsorbed by nature in such a short period of time. And it was just, the site's huge. Traveling between two railroad tunnels. Bob, you got to be a little more specific than two railroad tunnels. And that one, is that the going over the trestle, the viaduct? Thank you for the compliment, Vicky. You guys are being so nice about how many good ones there are. All of them are fun. The ones that tickle the brain are fun. The ones that tickle the muscles are fun. The ones that tickle the nose are fun. The ones that scare me, and what I mean by scare me is there's a level of danger. Okay, I'm going to do this, but if I get hurt, this is going to be bad. I'm not an adrenaline junkie,
What?
and but boy, do I like that stuff. When I went and did the Pulpit Rocks, it's an early video. I did the Pulpit Rocks. The science behind it is just spectacular. Doing a campy 1970s guy girl scene in the beginning was actually kind of fun. I know you guys hated it, but I thought it was funny. Anyway, when I actually went and I did that, I had COVID before they called it COVID. And when I was up there, I couldn't breathe. Yet I was on the top of the Pulpit Rocks, and it's a good 40 to 50 foot drop, and I was just skipping from one rock to the other. And before I left, I told Leslie, I was like, you can't come. She goes, oh, but I want to go. And I was like, oh, I'll be okay. And I was like breathing really heavy, just trying to get out to the car at the time, the Jeep at the time. And she's like, well, I want to go. And I'm like, oh no, you got other stuff to do. Wink, wink. And let her do her thing. And I went out there and I was by myself and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Got up the side of the hill and I'm like, oh, what was I doing? Oh, I can't believe this. Then I go, oh, I got to jump from here and 10 feet across a pit of despair. And I was doing it and having a ball. When I came back, you guys didn't see some of that footage. Leslie got to see the raw footage. And I got in so much trouble. I was told that I can't do another show. No more shows.
Stupidity
she has to go along.
Look well on you.
Elkland Tannery. That would be a good one. That would be a good one. I got to add that to a note. All right, let's see. Coburn. That was, all right. So Bob Earhart, a spectacular photographer who loves to go around and see all these different sites. He and I both went out to the Coburn Tunnel and the Poe Patty Tunnel. And they're separated as the crow flies by 1 mile. But in order to get to it, when you go from the Poe Patty and you want to go to the Coburn, you have to go. Bob, what did we do? Was it like 30 miles around and through the woods and multiple times getting stopped, people going, yeah, now you probably shouldn't go any further up along this trail. We were like, we got this. We're going to do it. And we actually made it. And that was a lot of fun. But that was a lot of driving around just to go 1 mile. Roger, the one where the children were killed, the lost children of the Alleghenies. All right. So I did the research on that and I put the story together correctly. And at that point, it's just like typing and collecting the information and reading through things and making sure it's all copacetic with each other. And then you reach a point where you actually go, all right, now let me read this out loud and listen to what I'm saying. Make sure that that you understand what's being said and the concepts behind it. And after I read my own script, I was like, wow, that's rough. And then I read it to my wife, and she's like, holy cow. And I was like, I know, right? And then when I got out there, oh my word, the atmosphere, the way the wind was blowing and the way the wind wasn't blowing, and I can't convey any of that through the video. And yes, the story destroyed me trying to read it. I had the same problem with Phillips Rangers. Once I had that story all put together, I had to take 3 or 4 breaks just because I'd start crying. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know why I'm bothered by this, but holy cow, these are horror stories. And they are my favorite stories to tell because people don't realize it was rough. And the people back then had rough times just like we do now. Okay. So Bob says the Coburn driving through Po Valley was actually 2 hours of driving. POW was fave. Which POW camp, Adam? The one in Michaud, or that's the one I loved. I love that one. And I actually want to talk about that one. And that's probably going to be next week's video. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. I was talking to Bob about that. And one of the things that we talked about in the Michaud POW camp was a particular PO box full with a group of people that did sneaky things. And that's how they identified themselves. And I alluded to it being woo-woo and not wanting to get into the woo-woo. But being that we're stretching a little bit and we're kind of, making a little more room in the Odyssey for woo-woo that has facts behind it, I was thinking we should maybe learn a little bit more about the group that, what was it? Yeah, 1142. Learn more about P.O. Box 1142 and what they have to offer us in a story. They just put a monument up that, not just, but there's a monument put up where the building actually existed down in Virginia. I won't be able to go to the building, but I'll be able to get you photos of it and everything. So that'll be that'll be interesting. Yeah, Les has been wanting to hear more about the men who stare at goats for quite some time. Tytuna, I want to go back to Tytuna Cave. That was second video. I think that was the second video of the channel. Yes. And it was on a whim. And we had batteries. And the kids were into it. One of them was into it. One of them wasn't into it as much. And when we did it, we had a lot of fun. And froze body parts off because that water was cold. And it was late summer when we did it. But I want to go back because all of that footage, aside from what you see in that video, which is probably 2.5 hours of footage, is gone. I had a hard drive crash and lost a whole lot of footage of a lot of locations, and that was one of them. But that just tells me that, hey, instead of taking out this 10-year-old phone and using this to video, I can actually take out this 1-year-old phone and do it in 4K. And instead of using, I don't have one laying around. Instead of using one of those little handheld flashlights, oh, here you go. Instead of using little headlamp, I can actually break out the Super LED light that has longer battery life and can do 10 bajillion lumen. And I think that'll make for much better videos until we reach that spot where the cave got really cold and everybody's flashlights went dead and nobody's phones would work. And that was a fun part. My son got a little more nerve-wracked about that than other people. And I was like, oh, it's no problem, come here. And one was able to get their phone turned back on just enough so that we had enough light to put a battery in as a replacement. And then everything started working again normally. I know Les wanted to go on that one. You didn't get to go on that one. But yeah, crawling through deep holes and deep dark caves. That was a lot of fun. All right, gang. We've been playing here for about an hour. I wanted to give you an after show opportunity. Let me know if you actually want after shows or if you just want more content in general. And let me know how often you want to do this type of chatting back and forth. I figure when the channel gets bigger, more people are going to want to do after show talks. But I figured let's start now. Let's do it now because that's just as important. Yes, the Jones Book History of Juniata Valley is. Let me see. Is that what this one is? No, this one's Africa's. This one, Africa on Huntington County. He knew what he was doing. But I have the Jones one in probably E format. Okay, if I miss your questions or comments on the side there, save it for the next after show, or send it to me in an email, or jump over on Facebook and send me a message there. I will definitely respond. If you don't like any of the responses I've given or things that I've said here, well, I'm sorry. If I didn't respond, it's because it didn't fit the topic or the methodology of the channel, or it doesn't fit with the concept of the channel or with the channel's core that I've repeatedly expressed in other videos. So there's certain things that we do talk about, certain things we don't talk about, but I don't think we had any problems today. We have in other videos. Blend of after show chats and the videos. Yeah, see, that's where I think it'll be really interesting, Mrs. Barney, when people have the opportunity to say, hey, how many, you said there were over 500 incidents of spontaneous human combustion in the United States over 300 years. And to actually talk about individual ones, there are people that are still around that know the stories better than I do and know more than what was said or done. Like, for example, when when the elderly woman burned in down toward Philadelphia, when she caught fire, the fire marshal right away was like, oh, spontaneous human combustion. And then everybody came in and kind of pushed them out. And it was a real big deal. There were newspaper articles on the fact that the police chief got pushed out, and his definition of what the fire was all about and what caused it was totally covered up and masked up. And they were like, no, she dropped a cigarette on herself. And I'd lean toward that she dropped a cigarette on herself and may have been a diabetic and the whole acetone concept. But at the same time, why did they try so hard to shut him up? That's the part where I go, well, wait a minute. So I like when we get the tech stuff on the side and people can interact with it. Anyway, I absolutely loved hanging out with all of you. And for those of you who did not get to participate in this, just leave comments down below. That's for the people in the future. That's called foreshadowing. There's going to be other people aside from you guys here in the chat that are going to watch this. Anyway. Hashtag replay.
Hashtag replay.
Why would I hashtag No, I don't say hashtag. Too old to say hashtag. Hashtag fact. Anyway, as always, I love all of you. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.